Hey Magical Sparks, welcome back, it's Sparkle here, and today we're going to be comparing the Arrtx brush markers with the OHUHU brush markers. So I made this drawing just a day before mermay started and I loved it so much, so I decided to take a photo of it and transfer it digitally. I did go ahead and start doing the coloring, but we're not going to be looking into that today. But what we are going to be looking at is the line art that I did. So I did the line art and then I changed the line art color and I printed out the drawing. Then I got my scissors and cut them in half, and now we have two identical drawings to color. And the next thing to do before we start coloring is to look at the swatch cards from both sets and pick out the colors and get as good of a match as we can. But yeah, with all that work done, it's time to get on to the fun part, which is the coloring. And while I'm making these drawings, I'm also going to be looking at different parts of these markers, so let's get straight into it. We have OHUHU on the left side and Arrtx on the right side here. Firstly, the brush nibs. So the markers I'm comparing both have brush nibs. As you can see, the brush nibs are really good in terms of their shape as they come to a fine point, and you can get a really good variety of line weights. And in my opinion, they both work pretty similarly, but I felt more comfortable using the OHUHU ones personally because I felt like the nib was just a little bit more bigger and just slightly more flexible. By the way, I do want to mention the sets I'm using. So for Arrtx, I'm using the Arrtx Oros brush marker set that has brush nibs on one side and chisel nibs on the other. And for OHUHU, I'm firstly using the OHUHU skintone set that has brush nibs and chisel nibs, as well as the OHUHU pastel set that has brush nibs and bullet nibs. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that both these marker brands do produce markers that have a bullet nib on one side and a chisel nib on the other, but today I'm specifically going to be comparing the brush nib and the chisel nibs. And honestly, both these nibs are really ideal to use when you're blending two alcohol-based markers together. And that brings me to my next point, chisel nibs. But first off, like I was saying, both these sets do come with bullet nibs as well. So for example, this is the pastel marker I was using and it has a bullet nib, but this marker is one that has a chisel nib, and as you can see, it has a really nice point. It's really sharp and it works really well. And here are just some examples of the line varieties you can get. Trust me, you can get a lot depending on how you use it. And now here are the Arrtx ones. In my opinion, they look pretty similar, not a big difference there, and they work pretty similarly as well. I had no concerns with them and I loved using them both. And also the first ever marker set that I got had chisel nibs, so I started off using alcohol-based markers with chisel nibs, so I kind of like them. But I know some artists who start off with brush markers, when they switch to chisel nibs, they do have a bit of difficulty, but trust me, once you understand how it works, you won't really have too many problems. Also, can I just say thank you guys so much for 1K. You guys always make my day and I just cannot believe we got here. Thank you so much for all the support, and I'm definitely going to be making a 1K special drawing to celebrate this amazing moment, so stay tuned for that. But just before that, let's talk about mermay for a second. So mermay is happening this year and I didn't really do a good job of keeping up. I made that sketch of the mermaid in my sketchbook just a day before May started, and then I kind of just started drawing other stuff and I got busy. But I worked on this drawing at the start of May, so I actually recorded this video at the start of May as well. So yeah, the footage is pretty old, so if my art style looks any different than it did recently, that's pretty much why. And now let's look at the flexibility of the brush nibs, and as you can see here, I think these tests are enough to show you just how flexible these brush nibs are. They are really stable, and an added advantage with the OHUHU brush markers is that the brush nibs are actually reversible. So if your brush nib gets too frayed, you can literally just take it out carefully and use the brush nib on the other side depending on which set you have. I personally think it's really great that they included this option because sometimes if your brush nib gets frayed, it's kind of annoying just not being able to use the marker for that one reason, for adding details and stuff. So the fact that it is reversible is a really cool option. Now when it comes to alcohol-based markers, I personally think that blending is a really important thing to look at. So what I did was I picked out two similar colors from both sets, a blue and a pink, and here I'm blending them together. I didn't choose a middle color because I didn't want to add another color and I just wanted to see how the two markers blended together by themselves. The Arrtx color that I chose for the pink was a little bit more darker and it was a purple, which made the blending just slightly difficult, but in my opinion and from my experience, I can safely say that both these markers are amazing at blending, and in the end, I don't think it turned out too bad. Now moving on with the coloring for the skin done, I'm just wrapping up the coloring for the hair as well. And as you can see, I did go with a gradient for the hair because I just thought it might look pretty. And I'm also trying to make my art style a little more unique by playing around with how I color and how I draw hair and faces. I still need to go experiment a lot more, but so far I'm liking how it's looking. At this point, it doesn't look too different, and like I said before, I did try my best to match the colors that I was using from both sets, but of course I couldn't match them exactly, so there were some minor differences in color. And by the way, here are how the markers look. As you can tell, the Arrtx one looks just a little bit more bigger, but here's how they look. The OHUHU one has a line marking one side of the marker, so you can tell which nib side is which, and the Arrtx one doesn't have that, but it's still pretty cool. And as you can tell, they both have cool features that stop them from rolling around. In OHUHU's case, it's the little lining that comes near the cap, and for Arrtx it's just the triangular shape the marker has. I know some of you guys might think it's a really small thing and it doesn't really matter, but in my opinion it's actually so annoying to have a marker that just keeps rolling off your desk or just rolling on your desk, and it's really annoying. So thank you so much Arrtx and OHUHU for adding in these features, because it is actually really helpful. By the way, about this drawing, if you were to ask me what inspired me to create this drawing, I don't really have an idea. I just wanted to draw a mermaid, so I drew a mermaid. And then for the coloring though was heavily inspired by Pink Lemonade. I have no idea why that inspired me, but that is what kind of pushed me to use all the colors I did with the yellow and the orange and the pink and the purple. And yeah, that's pretty much what inspired this drawing. I just love the entire vibe of it though. But there isn't a lot of orange marker used in this drawing. It's mainly just the pink blended into the yellow. I did want to use orange, but I did have a bit of a problem matching it up in both sets, so that's why I didn't do it. By the way, here are how the two marker brands look by the caps. As you can tell, OHUHU does label their markers with a bit more detail than Arrtx does, but it's okay. You can still use your swatch card to find out the color with the Arrtx markers. The thing with me is whenever I'm coloring, I always have my swatch card by my side, so I don't really mind. I don't really find it like a problem to look at the swatch card, but I know for some people it might be easier just to have the color name on the nib, just so they can figure it out without having to get their swatch card out, which is completely fine. But yeah, for me, it isn't really a problem. When I was coloring these drawings as well, I tried my best to make sure I colored the same parts, but I kind of did jump between them. Like as you can see, I'm trying to color in the tail for both of these drawings, but it was kind of hard to make them match completely when I was editing. And yes, because I know someone's gonna ask me in the comments, don't worry, I've got you. The OHUHU brush markers are good in terms of the cap fitting on the other side of the marker, but with Arrtx that is not the case, so you will have to place the cap somewhere on your desk when you're drawing. But again, this is something that some people really care about and others don't really mind, so it's really up to you in the end how far you choose to look into this. And I'm almost done with my mermaid drawing. As you can see, I've pretty much finished coloring in the character and now I'm just doing the background. This used up quite a bit of ink, but I feel like it was worth it. And also the paper I'm using is pretty thick, so this paper does work really well with markers, and that definitely made blending easier for me. And also, in case you're wondering, both of these sets do come with a colorless blender. I think that they're actually pretty useful. As you can see, the ones I'm showing you now both have chisel nibs and brush nibs. Here's how the Arrtx brush nib looks, and here's how the OHUHU brush nib look. And as you can see, the OHUHU one was a little bit dirty. That's because I did use it quite a couple of times, so that's the thing with colorless blenders. They will look a little bit dirty, but don't worry, as you keep using them, it'll go away. It'll be fine. And now it's time to wrap up the drawing with my favorite part of the drawing process, adding in the highlight. And with that done, we are pretty much done with this little comparison video. But anyways, these are just my opinions on these markers, and I hope you found them helpful, and it's completely okay if you have different opinions as well. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a fabulous day, stay awesome as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, Magical Sparks!